Hey everybody, I am welcoming I don't want to say one of my biggest role model and my dad. He has agreed to be interviewed by me today, and guess what? Today is his 75th birthday.
All right, don't make a big deal out of it.
Do you know what we did this morning? Okay, so the gym didn't open till 7 o'clock this morning. We were one of the first ones there. I made sure I took a little selfie with Dad and put it on Facebook this morning. And he's going to talk a little bit about himself. We just got to get an audience going here, Dad. That's why. Okay. So I look up, we're at the gym and the weights are downstairs and the cardio equipment is upstairs. And I look up and Dad's jogging. And Dad's going to tell you a little bit, some of the questions I have him talking about today. Dad shouldn't be jogging. So, I don't know about that, Dad. Why were you running up there?
That wasn't a jog. As long as your both feet aren't off the ground, you're walking. And that's what I was doing.
Okay, so for the majority of you out there, what Dad was doing was running.
No, I was walking.
All right, Dad. So we're going to get started here. How do you feel this morning?
I feel terrific. I feel absolutely terrific.
Yeah. He's such a great guy, everybody. And if you follow me on Facebook, you see how much I idolize him and how strong he is, not only as a physical person, but also as my dad. So, okay, my first question to my dad is, have you always been into health and fitness?
Not always. Through high school, I was basketball, baseball, and cross country. And then after high school, I went into the service. And from 1960 to 65, I was in the service and maintained physical fitness. But after that, from about 1965 to around 1979, I was lax in my athletic endeavors. And of course, when you and your sister came along in the mid-70s, what your mom and I used to say is you just have to tell young people to take the next 25 years and put an X there, and you're going to be with your children the whole time. So, but anyway, not always, but I picked it back up in the mid-70s after you were born.
Mid-70s. I was born in 75. My sister was born in 77. So what made you change your life path health-wise, and why? What made you change?
Well, I always used the adage that if I couldn't comfortably tie my shoelaces, I knew that I had a watch. And it became increasingly difficult for me to tie my shoelaces. So I figured I needed to take a good hard look at what it would take to get back in shape. So I started running.
Yeah, running. So why did you choose running over swimming or biking or other things like that?
Simply because running is the most individual sport that you can do, and you don't need other people, and you can be out the door and allot your time and be back, because when you have a family and you have a full-time job and you have a business on the side, appropriation of time is very important. And if you can go out the door and be back in a half an hour or an hour, and you know that, and you don't have to depend on it. It isn't like going golfing where you got to cross off a whole half a day or three-quarters of a day, or even fishing or any of those endeavors. Running is you're out and you're back, and it's individual.
That's really true.
Yeah.
So what age? Tell them, because some kids start really young now running, and they're runners all their life. So what age did you start running?
Well, I was in my mid-30s till I started running, and so it's been a journey since then. In 1979, I took up running as for serious seriously took up running. And in 1980, I ran my first marathon. And through the 80s and 90s, I tried to run 2 marathons a year through the 80s and 90s. And those were years when you needed attention, your sister needed attention. But what we did was we incorporated the marathons into vacations, as you remember. You know, we would go here and there, and your mom did all the work and keeping you two in tow. And when we visited Boston and I ran the Boston Marathon 3 times, you got a chance to see Harvard and MIT and tour Boston, and it was all good. And then when we went to Washington, D.C., that's where I would train for, or actually qualify for Boston in November of each year is
the Marine
Corps Marathon. You have to qualify for Boston, and I use that as a qualifier to qualify for Boston. And then we'd go to Boston in April.
Yeah. So how many marathons did you run?
Well, through the 80s and 90s, I tried to run 2 a year. And,
that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, it was a spring and a fall.
Yeah.
Because those are the 2 times best for runners. You train. You start your training for a spring marathon in very cool weather, and then when the 3rd Monday in April comes around, it can be 30 degrees in Boston, or it could be 80 degrees.
Yeah, the past couple of years, it's been really, really warm, like really warm.
So it's a crapshoot for the spring marathon. Yeah. But what you have to remember is it's warm or it's cold for everybody, not just you. If you adjust your PR goal, you'll be okay. If you understand when it's 80 degrees, you're not going to run a PR. Whereas with the fall marathons, you start in the warm weather. Your training usually starts about 12 weeks ahead of the marathon. So
yeah, so for those people that are watching that may want to start running, and you know, like you said, you didn't start until later in life. You wasn't like a really young runner. What was like your slowest marathon time? And then what was your fastest marathon time? So people know that, you know, you can progress and meet goals and set new goals.
And you plateau also.
Yeah.
Now, my first marathon I ran in 3 hours and 30 minutes. And my best marathon at the Marine Corps Marathon was 2 hours and 58 minutes.
And how old were you with that one?
I was 42. I was 3 weeks away from being 43 when I ran that 2:58.
Okay, so I'm 42. And there's no way I could run a sub 3 hour marathon. This is why this guy is like seriously my idol and an idol to so many other people out there. We went to the gym this morning and this woman came up to me and said, "Are you Roger's daughter?" And I said, "Yeah." She said to me, can't remember her name, but she said to me, she's like, "I idolize your dad." And I said, "I do too." And then I look up there and he's running on the treadmill. So what was your most memorable marathon and why?
Well, it was that one in 1985 when I was the sub 3 hour one. And then afterwards, if you recall, your mother and your sister met me at the appropriate place at the finish line, and a Washington Post reporter came up and actually interviewed your mom and me.
Yeah.
And then it made the Washington Post the next day. There was an article in the paper, and it referenced you by name and your sister Erica by name, and your mom. That was before the internet whatsoever. We had to scramble to get a copy of the Washington Post, and we did. We have it.
Yeah, and you know, as a child, I didn't appreciate all these trips that we took to Boston multiple times, and and he did run the Chicago Marathon. You never ran the New York City one, did you?
Well, there's a long story involved in that, and I'd rather not get into it. It's I'm sort of sour on the New York Marathon because they had it. You were supposed to have your entry postmarked on a certain day, and I knew a fellow that worked at the post office, and he worked the night shift, and I gave him my application, and he took it to work with him and had it postmarked on the appropriate day. And when it came back to me, it said I wasn't fast enough to get into that my entry didn't reach them fast enough, and they didn't accept me. So I got very angry when I got that rejection notice, and I thought, I'll never run the New York City Marathon. I'm not begging to run a marathon. So
you never ran there.
No.
But Boston was fun.
Yeah.
Hilly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that Heartbreak Hill is actually a series of hills culminating in the one that they call Heartbreak. And if you recall, the one year we went as viewers to the marathon, and we went to Heartbreak Hill and actually watched the leaders of the Boston Marathon exchange. We watched the number one guy go from 2 to 1, the eventual winner.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, we
did. I don't remember that.
We did. Yeah.
So tell everybody why did you stop running?
Well, your little sister, after she graduated college, as you recall, and then I retired, and we went on a trip. Your mom and you and I went to San Francisco and got a minivan and went from San Francisco all the way down to San Diego, and we had that vacation together.
Yeah.
And I knew that would be our last vacation together because you were moving on, and Erica was getting a full-time job as soon as we got back from the vacation, and she went to work for Lockheed Martin, and she ran with the Lockheed Martin corporate team, and then she had it arranged that I could also do that. But when it came time for me to run with Lockheed Martin, my left knee was really bothering me, and it turned out that was my last competitive race, and I had my left knee totally replaced, and so since then, and that was, I haven't run competitively since 2005. So.
Did you miss it?
Oh yeah, well in the beginning I really missed it, but you accept things, life changes, you move on, you do different things.
And that's true,
Yeah.
Like, just because maybe you can't run anymore doesn't mean you need to stop doing everything.
Right.
So for those of you just hopping on, Dad's celebrating 75 years today. His birthday's today. And so at 75, tell me your normal exercise routine. Tell the viewers your normal exercise routine.
Well, I don't schedule days off, but I'm not as compulsive or obsessive rather as I used to be. If something comes up, I'll take a day off, and I don't fret over it. I just don't exercise that day. But I don't schedule any days off. I spin several times a week. I belong to 2 different gyms. I go to LA Fitness where they have spinning classes, and then I go to Planet Fitness where they don't have spinning classes, and I do the elliptical and I do the treadmill and things of that nature. But I truly enjoy spinning, and but I do it 7 days a week. But like I say, if something comes up and I don't do it, I don't do it. I don't make a big deal out of it.
So how many of you know another 75-year-old that goes to the gym 7 days a week?
Well, there's others.
There's others, I'm sure, but I don't know of them.
Yeah.
So I want to know, Dad, what's a normal, it could be, again, he's 75. I'm 42. My sister's 40. And we're covering a couple generations here. What do you eat in a normal day?
Well, if you want me to talk about isogenics, I will, because a little over 2 years ago, when you started on isogenics, and you and Gail and I and your mom were in the car going from Effingham to Schaumburg. We were going to a relative's funeral, and this was the first time that Tara told me about the venture that she was about to partake, and it threw me for a loop, because my first thought was, when she's telling me how her old college roommate got a hold of her and sort of sold her on this isogenic. She didn't name it by name, but she said there was this program, and Tara and Gail seemed sort of excited about it, and I was apprehensive and skeptical. The first thing I said to her was, I'd like you to Google Glenn Turner and see what you have to think about that. And because the first thing that came to my mind was this was nothing but a pyramid scheme, and little did I know that I was entirely wrong. So eventually, now that was June of 2015, and I think it might have been August till your mother and I said, well, we're going to go along with this program. And so that 11-day start, and for anybody that's contemplating starting isogenics, the 11-day start could seem insurmountable in that there's a 2-day cleanse involved in there, and just to think of the fact of not eating for 2 days doesn't seem doable. But it isn't a matter of not eating in 2 days. You're taking in the nutrients, the required nutrients to keep your body going. And then I relied on my marathon training, and when I would get hungry, I'd just drink more water, I'd put it off, or I'd go for a walk. I'd just do anything but eat. So those first 11 days, when the energy level excelled and the weight went off, it sort of sold us on isogenics. And then so we've been on maintenance ever since. We do cleanse once a day now.
Once a week.
Once a week,
yeah.
Rather. Every Monday we try to cleanse, and I'll be quite honest with you. We're not as steadfast, maybe, as we should be. I don't have 2 shakes every day, but I do try to live the isogenics and Higgs lifestyle.
That's right. Now, my parents were really big soda drinkers prior to starting our system, and it really makes me happy that they cut soda out, and that was a big thing. I mean, they used to always have just soda in the house. It wasn't like they were, but like maybe 1 or 2 a day, and they don't do that anymore. No.
We basically don't keep soda in the house, and we've cut down on our dairy products also, which isogenics suggest. And I used to be a yogurt every day guy, and don't do that anymore either. So no.
Yeah, Dad and Mom, it's always a pleasure to come visit them. I only see them like twice a year, and it's really nice to come visit them because they understand healthy eating and things like that. So they really understand my lifestyle too. So that's always appreciated. So one last question, Dad, okay? People are living longer, but they're not necessarily living healthier lives. So if you had to give our audience 3 tips on how to stay healthy as you age, what 3 top tips would you give them?
Well, you want to surround yourself with other people of a like mindset. It's not good to be around defeatist type people. It's not good to be around people who question what you're doing. You have to know in your own body what's good for your own body, and I would suggest that when you take a good long look in the mirror, only you know who's looking back at you. Don't try to impress other people. Try to get along that you're going through the day and getting, when you go to bed at night and say it's been a good day. And I don't know what else to say, Tara. I mean, just eat right, get the blood going, do something, keep moving every day.
So many people use age as an excuse, to like, oh, I can't do that, I'm 65, or, and Dad's one of those no excuses kind of guys. Yeah. That's how he brought us up, my sister and I, and that's how he still lives his life. And I think we talked a little bit about these questions last night. Another thing Dad said is is volunteer.
Oh yeah,
right?
Well, volunteer. Yeah.
So just tell them a little bit about what the main thing you volunteer for. He volunteers for a few things, but I just wanted to.
Well, the other than the church, I volunteer at the church all the time, but I volunteer at the hospital. I sit with people that are dying. People who don't have anybody, and that's a rewarding endeavor, to sit with people and let them know that they're not alone. And then I also volunteer at the blood bank too. So between those and trying to, and as you know, we just sold our house at the shore. The shore house took up a lot of time also. So that's what we do.
Yeah. He's a really good guy, everybody. I couldn't be prouder to have him as my dad. And when I was younger, like I said, I never ever appreciated, well, you know, my boys, sometimes I wonder if they appreciate me.
Well, let me tell you a story. One time, when I was running marathons, and your mother was working at the time, and you were going to school. You were in like middle school, and I was training for a marathon, and I was scheduled for a 20-mile run the next day, and your mother had to work, and you had school. But late the night before, you got sick, and you got sick to the point where I knew that you were not going to go to school the next day. And with your mom going to work and your sister going to school, the only option was for me to stay home with you that day. Well, so I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and went for a 20-mile run and got back before you got up, and before your mom left for work.
That's just that's exactly how Dad always lived, and he was a full-time firefighter, had his own business on the side besides firefighting, a vending machine business. He is and still is the best dad, like one at the softball games that videotaped the entire game, not just like when I'm up to bat or when I'm doing something, but we have every game on video from start to finish. If you were ever played with me, I could definitely get you those. And he was always there, like my biggest cheerleader, Erica's biggest cheerleader, and he's been married to my mom for how many years?
45. It'll be 46 in January.
46 years. Yeah. So, I mean...
and your mom is the glue that holds this family together and always has been.
Yeah. They have a true love story. That's a whole nother call. Yeah. But hold on just a second. Yes, Tonya, he's an amazing role model. He is. I love him so much, and I appreciate him taking the time today on his 75th birthday to talk to me and
give you a kiss.
Okay. Love you, Dad.
Love you too.
Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy your family this weekend on this Thanksgiving weekend, and we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.